quit. I quit. That's it. Finito. Done. Put a fork in it. It's done. Now, if your 9 to 5 is working you over, you need to quit it. Quit it. Yeah, you really need to quit it. So, on your next break, so you're at your 9 to 5, working diligently. I'm sure you have like a 15-minute break coming up, or maybe you have like a half-hour lunch coming up. Maybe you're higher up on the ladder and you have an hour lunch coming up. So what I would tell you, what I would suggest to you, if your 9 to 5 is working you over, go to the bathroom and recite to yourself, I quit. I quit. I quit. Take a deep breath. Wash your hands. Of course, you can finish up if you have some business to do in the bathroom. Take care of your business. Then wash your hands. And then go back to work. Yes, I said then go back to work. Because there's work to be done. Now, I'm not suggesting that you quit in the traditional sense, as in QUIT. So I'm not suggesting that you QUIT your job today. I'm not suggesting that. It's a little bit spontaneous. It's a little bit sporadic. I don't encourage that. I don't advocate for that. But I am suggesting that you simply quit, as in KWIT, today. Now, KWIT quit, you can do that today. And I suggest that you do it today. Now, KWIT is an acronym. Okay. Obviously, the K stands for something, the W, then you have the I, and you have the T. And they each stand for something in order to drive you toward having a better existence, a happier existence, and having better days. And some of us on our jobs, we get into bad moments, we get into bad days, we have bad weeks, months, it turns into years. The cycle continues, it perpetuates itself. Oftentimes we feel trapped in that 9 to 5, and we just keep on running that hamster wheel. We never get off. We just think to ourselves, what if? What if? I don't like this job. It's weighing me down. It's a burden. It might be affecting my sleep. My home life may be affecting my home life. I may be taking work home with me. Maybe affecting my interactions with my spouse and my family, because I may be putting in long hours. I may be working on the weekend. Various ways that it can affect me negatively, but I may feel that I'm trapped in my 9 to 5. So I'm here to say that if you feel trapped, you feel burdened by your 9 to 5, quit it. KWIT today. Now, what does the K stand for? The K stands for keep your job in perspective. Okay? Your job is a means or a tool to an end. You were not born to work a job or that job. All right? You didn't start a family for the sake of that job. You're working that job for the sake of your family. you're working that job in order to attain certain goals. So we're going to keep it in perspective. Now, a 9 to 5 should really be what it implies. All right? So 9 to 5 is 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. All right? Generally, there's a lunch hour in there, what have you. It may get stretched out to 5:30. Some of us start at 8 o'clock in the morning. Some of us start at 7 in the morning. But generally speaking, a 9 to 5 is going to encompass 8 hours plus some kind of break. If you're fortunate, you might have a paid lunch. But of course, there's always the potential for overtime. So you keep it in perspective. All right? So what you do before 9 o'clock is your business. That's your family time. That's your personal time. What you do after 5 o'clock, that's your business. That's your family time, your personal time. And so we have to keep it in proper perspective. All right? Your life should not exist around work. Work should just be a part or a piece of your life. So we're going to keep it in proper perspective. We're not going to alienate family. We're not going to anger our spouses. We're not going to lose friends over that 9 to 5. Now, we're not going to miss out on opportunities due to that 9 to 5 also. So we need to keep that in proper perspective. It's a tool. It's a means to an end. And if for some reason it stops to fulfill its full functionality or its full usefulness, or for some reason the negativity or the energy that comes off of it is more destructive than productive, then we need to consider moving on from that job. So the K is keep it in perspective. It's a job. It's a tool. It's a mean. But there are other tools and other means out there. So that takes care of the K. What does the W stand for? The W stands for you really need to work on a side hustle or two. And you also need to work on an exit plan. Okay? So aside from the work that you do at your 9 to 5, you need to do some personal work. Work on a side hustle or two. You really don't want to be dependent upon one job, one source of income for your sole existence. Because what that does is that inhibits your ability to pivot. It inhibits your ability for flexibility in your lifestyle. But if you can develop side hustles, which are extra means of income, extra streams of income, then that gives you a little bit more flexibility, gives you a little bit more autonomy with your life, gives you a little bit more leeway. So you need to work on developing side hustles, whether it be doing some side photography, whether it be working some gig apps. You can work some gig apps before you go into your 9 to 5. You can work some when you get off of your 9 to 5. You may decide to work some gig apps. You can work Uber, you can drive people around if that's your cup of tea. You can deliver food. You can DoorDash and deliver food if that might be your cup of tea. If you're in an educational setting, you have some of those skills, you can tutor on the side. If you're a trainer, you can do some training type things on the side, but develop a side hustle or two. We do need and we do want those multiple streams of income because that gives us a little bit more control over our time and our income. And I mentioned that the W also stands for work on an exit plan. So walking into work, being disappointed, realizing that you're on a dead-end street, that you're just running in circles, you're stressed out, losing hair, losing sleep, having issues with the family, and you say, well, I'm going to quit. That's it, I quit. You're setting yourself up for some problems. You need to develop or work on an exit plan. You work on that exit plan, then you can identify clearly when you're going to quit with the QWIT, because you know what the time frame is for that. You know what your interim plans will be as far as bridging you back or bridging you over to your next opportunity. You know what side hustles you're going to do in order to fill in some of the income gaps that you may have. But you're going to work on an exit plan. And that plan may include cutting back on some of your expenses. All right. So some of us, we try to succeed and we feel like we've made it before we have actually gotten there. And so oftentimes our lifestyle is structured as if we've made it, as if we've acquired certain wealth, and we really haven't. That's another conversation. So in working on that exit plan, we may have to cut back some of our expenses. We may have that second car or car note that we need to cut back. We may have an expensive loft, condo, penthouse, or whatever we call them nowadays. We may have something expensive that we need to cut back, and long story short. We may have some subscriptions that we need to cut back, some memberships we need to cut back. But that's part of exit planning. Cut back your expenses so that when you do make your exit, you're going to be able to fill in certain income gaps without feeling like you're under duress or you're desperate, such that you can't exit and that you have to stay there. All right. So now, what does the I stand for? Well, the I should be pretty obvious because we already worked on a plan. So the I is to implement the plan. Okay, so now planning is great, but without implementation, it might just be a dream or a thought. And ironically, some people develop plans and they collect dust for weeks, months, years. Some of us write our plans down in our journals, our diaries maybe, and they just sit there and they collect dust. So your goal is, if you are going to quit with the KWIT, you need to implement those plans. Okay, you need to go through with it. Walk in confidence, walk in faith. If you're religious, pray on it. Pray some more, and then pray again, that you can walk out on faith. And so you need to implement those plans. And lastly, what does the T stand for? The T stands for trying. Okay. We need to be willing to try something new. Try. There are no guarantees. Okay, there weren't guarantees, and there aren't any on your 9 to 5. There's no guarantee that they're not going to walk in one day and say, Tammy, you're going to be laid off. We were having a slowdown in our production, and so you're going to be laid off. There's no guarantees in that. There's no guarantees in your health. Okay, there may be a particular 9 to 5 that you're working that's dependent upon your health is going to dictate your ability to fulfill that job. There are no guarantees on your health. You can have issues the next day, the next month. No guarantees on that. So, some people are like, well, I'm not going to try it unless I have a guarantee. Or I'm not going to try it unless it's 90% likely, 90% plausible. I'm not going to try it. And the reality is, oftentimes, there is no guarantee. And so you have to be willing to try. Give things a try. In the scientific world, we call it experimentation. Okay, so when I say try something, I really mean experiment. So you need to experiment with certain things. If you, in your plan, you had certain side hustles that you designated that you were going to try out, go ahead. Experiment with those. See how they work. Tweak things. Make adjustments. But try it. If you always wanted to start up a photography business because you said, well, I like photography, it's something I can get into, it's a passion of mine. I don't know if there's a lot of money in it, but it is a passion of mine. Try it. Give it a shot. Be willing to try. Because if you're willing to try, that means you're willing to fail. A lot of times we don't try because we don't want to fail. Failure is not an issue. Not trying is an issue. Because if you fail, you can always pick yourself back up, gather yourself back together again, and then you can try something else. So that's the quit, the KWIT that I'm referring to that you should do today. And if you're willing to quit with the KW today, then sometime in the near future, you'll be able to quit with the QUIT, your job in the near future. All right. Until next time, like, subscribe, and comment. Let me know what y'all think. But just don't complain.